Today I'm going to make a wall plaque, textured maybe, not sure, out of this piece of horse chestnut that seems to be nice and dry that I acquired recently. So first thing I do is sort of make it a bit more rounder on the bandsaw. Okay, so the first piece of wood I've actually decided to keep back because it was a bit thick for a platter. But this is the same horse chestnut stock. So I've got a little screw chuck. That'll go in the drawers. Hopefully that'll run fairly true, it doesn't always. Because this is the thin bit, I'm going to turn a mortise I think on there. Okay, so I've got these dovetail outside drawers on Axminster chuck. Okay, so that's a bit messy. I've got the centre up whilst I get it all trued up. Right, just true up the bottom now. Now just to mark on the size of the mortise, which I measured up earlier on. I want to keep the tailstock up as long as possible, so I'm doing a plunge cut with the parting tool at an angle which should fit the tenon neatly. I want to texture and finish the inside of the mortise before I transfer to working on the other side, so I'm just going to pull the rest of the waste out with the spindle gouge and then trim it all off nice and flat with the skew acting as a scraper. I like to keep the tailstock up as long as possible when I'm on a screw chuck, just in case, so I've removed it now at the last possible minute just to dress it and get ready for finishing. I want a nice crisp dovetail, so using the skew to achieve that, because this is only a couple of mil thick. And then a bit of a reprofile of the bottom, so this is going to hang on the wall, so and the dovetail will be used for the nail support. So I just want a little convex base so that it will just sit neatly on the wall. Right, time to get the texturing tools out and have a play. I think I'll use the big Sorby wheel this time with the chamfer on the cog sitting upright, and just a nice firm push for about 3 or 4 seconds. So got a sort of pleasant enough little mini spiral in the middle, and then just carry on moving the cog out in different positions, creating a variety of patterns. And now just to mark it up, where I'm going to use the point tool to create some demarcation grooves. And I think there's space for just some little lines using the Crown Mini, just pushed in straight, so you just get a series of lateral lines without a spiral. Well, they all look quite nice and crisp, so now time to tackle the base. I want to do this in one continuous opening spiral, so this is going to be one solid push, not taking it off at all, otherwise you get a completely chewed up mess. And now some demarcation lines, so we've got a clear edge to the pattern. And I want to create a slightly better definition to the edge, so I'm just taking a little bit off with the small spindle gouge just to create a little recess there that gives a sharper finish. So that's the texturing done. I just now want to sand it up using Abranet and then some Nyweb. The Horse Chestnut does come up with a lovely finish, but it's still a little furry where the cog has cut, so I've used a brass brush just to clean out those little furry bits. I don't know whether I'm going to colour this or not. I'm going to see what it comes up like with a bit of sanding sealer on. Oh, sorry, I decided to colour it. So I'm going to ebonise it now. Right, so that's the black on. Now, I don't know how successful this is going to be. I've got some of this silver acrylic paint. I want to try and see if I can get that rubbed into the crevices. So I want the silver to be knocked back a bit because I'm probably going to add something else over the top. So I'm just using some thinners as a solvent and just cutting it back a bit on the surface, leaving the silvery finish it more dominant in the texturing, and hopefully bring a little bit of the black out. Slightly more pewtery. Right, so I'm going to try some Inka Gold, some copper. Smells a bit bright, I know. I just want to try and bring out some highlights on top of the silver on. Yeah, and it just adds a little bit of interest. Okay, so that's obviously going to be where I'm going to expand the jaws, and it's likely to mark the edge. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to actually remove the finish, so I get a clear line of wood so that you can actually see that it's wood as well. That's unfortunately meaning I'm going to have to remove a little bit of the texture that I've done, but as long as I get it to a nice clean line, it doesn't matter. So I've just used the 1/4 inch spindle gouge to very carefully produce a little cove right next to the dovetail, with a nice sharp edge to that dovetail being very important still, so it grips well. And then just to balance it up, I'm going back to the edge that I'd previously cut down a little bit, and I'm just doing a little detail there, a little cove detail, just to create a little bit more interest at the corner. That's the bottom pretty well done. Just seal it up with some cellulose sanding sealer, let that dry off, and then start turning the other side. That's only the back. So I'm just trying to make it look a bit like some sort of shield. The dovetail gives an excellent fit, perfect grip, so there shouldn't be any marks from the chuck. Now just time to reduce it all the way down to a profile that meets up with the very thin bit. I want to leave a dome in the middle. This isn't going to be a flat platter. The form of this is taking root in my brain, and I'm going to make it like a shield with a boss. So I'm going to hollow out the middle, sort of bowl-like, and then texture and pattern the rest of it. It's sort of like emerges on the hoof, like most of my things do. Nothing like a good plan, and this is nothing like a good plan. So I've decided to turn some beads on the edge, because I think that's going to be left as a natural wood finish, whereas a lot of the rest of it might well be coloured and textured. So I'm just using a spindle gouge and rolling a few beads on the edge. So I've decided now, out of discretion, to put a little recess around the top of the bowl, which will match the mortise for the chuck jaws, just in case I need to reverse chuck it. And with that then formed and trimmed with the skew, just now finish the bowling out so that I can move on with the rest of it. And some quick depth checks with my homemade depth checker device, just to make sure that, well, I don't want to become a member of the funnel club, do I? I do want to form a boss in the middle, because that will be embellished as if it's a feature of the shield. So I've got to carefully now turn it and leave a nice crisp edge to that centerpiece. I've got a pretty good finish off the tool for that. So I'm now just creating a few little details around the edge, which will define the central area where I shall be doing some texturing. So I'm just doing some small beads with the 1/4 inch spindle gouge, just to reflect the design on the rim, and that'll be left clean with some texturing on the main body in between. So just to give it more definition, I'm just going to take a final push cut and just raise those beads up a little bit, get a nice finish off the tool. Just a very light sand needed on this, and then a quick spray with chestnut cellular sanding sealer. Okay, so I'm going to now mark up some areas where I'm going to do a bit of texturing. Right, so I've got my Axminster Dremel look-alike chisel system. Okay, so I've got the lines, some of them are going against the grain a bit, so I'm just putting a little burr in to the regular non-chisel, normal vibrating one, just to go down those lines and smooth them out. This is just a cheap diamond home. So I've got about 65 mil. So I want to make a third. Highly scientific, not. Right, I'm just going to put a little cove here. And I'm going to texture alternate areas. So I'm going to texture these areas with a big ball, and then alternate areas over here with a smaller ball on the Dremel. Alright, just to make my life easier, I'm going to use the Simon Hope carving jig. Alright, just swapping to a smaller, this is like a carbide rather than the other one is like a saber tooth. And see what this looks like. Right, I've got an assortment of things which I'm going to follow Nick Agar's ideas, just distress some of these areas with different tools. And this is a, we can call it starhead. And then a slightly different technique, holding the tool more loosely in my hand and letting it bounce, gave a series of smaller marks. So with that pretty much done, I want to do some texture on the inside of the bowl. So using the small crown one, which matches roughly the radius of the centre of the bowl. I'm just doing a gentle pull cut with it to create a spiral to start with. And then add a couple of swirls to the centre boss. And then a couple more lines without moving the tool of texture on the inside of the bowl as well. Alright, time to defuzz using one of these abrasive Silverline wheels. Just masking up the edge. I'm going to try some of the Intrinsic stained dyes. I've got some stone blue here. Right, I've got some flame now. So I'm just running the flame slightly more concentratedly over the big depressions, just trying to create a bit of variation in the finish. So it looks a bit like a sort of burnished, coppery finish, but there's still more to come, I think. Right, I'm just going to try light sand back with a bit of 320. Yeah, that's worked well. That's done what I hoped it would do. Just lift the colour, allow a little bit of the wood tone to come through, and make it a bit less dense in sort of colour. Right, I'm just going to highlight a few bits. Some Inka Gold, nice royal bluey sort of colour. Make it a bit like a cabochon, is that the word? Centre. So I'm going to use some Rub and Buff silver, sort of wax paint, and I could just gently apply that lightly across the surface just to knock back that colour so that it's a little bit like the back. So I'm rubbing it between my fingers to smooth it on very gently. Very light and just skimming over the top. So the masking tape seems to have worked well. All I need to do is just clean up the corner of that little bead on the edge just to make it nice and sharp. And then, because there's a wax element in that rubber buff, I can just burnish it now it's all dry, and just bring a bit of a shine up before I start to think about sealing it. I'm going to use a satin, I think, because I think that will sit a bit better with the sort of distressed look. So if I put the camera facing forward. So there it is, no wax or anything on it, just that satin acrylic. I think the texturings work well, and the colouring, this sort of coppery, metally, leady sort of colour with that cabochon type bright thing in the middle, I think it looks quite Nordic, like a nice shield. And the detail on the back, well, that's a bit of fun. At least it means it's a surprise when somebody picks it up, and it should just hang on that lip on a nail on the wall.